is going on, nerds? Welcome to another episode of The State of, in which we go into in-depth topics involving games and tech. Today's topic is the state of video games. More importantly, how games have evolved and what do we think about the games in the future? Where will they go? So this is a very exciting topic. We have a lot to cover, so we're going to get right into it. Charles, let's talk about video games. So one of the hottest topics right now with video games is microtransactions.
Yes.
We've heard so much about it, over the last couple of years. It seems to really be a bigger topic this past year, within the 6 months or so. It also coincides with the release of Star Wars, with some of the things that they did in there. We'll get into that topic a little bit. But, first of all, let's talk about. First of all, before we get into that, I know a lot of people have complained about microtransactions, and before people complain too much, I think they really need to understand why they exist. And let me give you a tweet from Jonathan Blow. Jonathan Blow is the creator of Braid and what is his other game?
Yeah, it just came out for PS4. I forget the name of it already. It's a puzzle game. It's pretty good.
We'll flash it, whatever
yeah.
it is. But
The Witness.
The Witness. That's it. Yep. So Jonathan Blow, he said, I understand the dislike of loot crates. I don't like them either. But a $60 game in 2017 is extremely cheap by historical standards. And most AAA games provide much more play value than games of the past. And that is true.
Yeah, I agree with his tweet. And well, with the exception of one thing, I wouldn't say that I necessarily dislike the idea of loot crates if they're gonna make the game cheaper to get into initially. Where I dislike loot crates is when companies start taking advantage of the system. So I don't know that loot crates are a bad thing inherently. I think that they can easily be taken. Companies can easily take advantage of a loot crate system and start making things outrageous prices.
Right.
But yeah, that was an interesting tweet.
Yeah, I'm glad he, put out somebody who's established in the gaming world to say that. Because me personally, again, we talked about $60 games. I mean, we should be thankful that the games are at $60. And we'll get into the game development costs and historical prices in a little bit, but $60 is not a bad price for a game. So those of you who are complaining about the price of games, we're going to put that into context a little bit later. But let's talk about why microtransactions exist. Obviously, the biggest thing is to offset development costs of video games.
Yep, makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. So what's funny is I think this is American issue for the most part. Like, I think game prices are going up everywhere else. Like in other countries, if I'm not mistaken, I think Australia pays a lot more for games than we do.
Yep.
But yeah, historically they've been $60.
And if you truly understood the cost of developing games, you understand why developers are doing these extra things to try to get more money to offset that. Because they could easily just say, you know what, instead of charging $60 for this game, I'm going to start charging you $70 and $80 for this game. Now, how would you, as a gamer, feel about that? So microtransactions are definitely optional. You don't have to, you can opt in. You're not required to do that. And you can pay the base price for $60 of the game, and then you're done. Which is usually my model. I usually pay the base price, and I don't really do microtransactions. I rarely do DLCs and expansion packs. So those microtransactions don't affect me. So
yeah, me neither for the most part. There are a couple of games that I bought DLC for. Whether it be in free, like when I get a game for free and I've been playing it for like 20 hours, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna just buy something just to support them. But I bought Zelda's DLC. That's the only one that I could think of in recent memory. So yeah, they are optional. But what do you think about? I don't know if we're gonna get into it and stop me if we are, but like companies that do pay to win. Does that kind of shift your mindset on DLC?
It really does. I think the way to do DLC, as I stated, it should be optional. I should not have to be required to buy something in order for me to finish the game or to make the game playable or better. Yeah, I don't agree with that model. I'm definitely against that wholeheartedly. And I think that was the problem that Star Wars Battlefront 2 ran into. Because a lot of the characters in the game, you need in order to progress through the game, they were astronomical, for some of that. So, yeah, I don't agree with that model at all.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah, me neither. I don't. And that's where I was saying, like, I think there's a good way to do, because we've seen it in companies like Blizzard. Like, Overwatch is a perfect example of how to do DLC and loot boxes. I've never felt the need. I personally never even seen the option to buy those in their game, but they're there and they make money off of them. So, like, that's a perfect example. I think the way that Grand Theft Auto is doing it is even a good example. Like, I never felt the need when I'm playing Grand Theft Auto Online to actually go and buy money. They give me plenty of options to make that money in game. So, there's good and bad ways to do it.
Yep, I agree 100%. Right, so again, going back to what we initially said, the reason why they exist is to offset some of the development costs. Now let's dive a little bit deeper into some of this development costs. So going back to the 1990s, we had some high-profile games like on the PCs and on the consoles. They only cost like a few $1,000,000 to make. Let's talk about like Crash Bandicoot 2 was $2 million to develop in the 1990s. Unreal Tournament was $2 million. Grim Fandango was $3 million. That was a little bit on the high end.
Yeah, that's
and
amazing.
like Thief, the Dark Project was another $3 million game to develop back in the 1990s.
Yep.
So then let's jump forward to like the 2000s. Obviously, technology got better. It costs more to develop these games, and the game budgets went up. So in 2000s, we started to see the games hit double-digit millions. More specifically, Jack and Dexter on the PS2 was $14 million to develop that game in the 2000s. Gears of War on the Xbox 360 was $10 million. Driver 3, you remember that game?
Yeah.
$34 million.
That was I remember that.
I remember
that being a big deal.
Right, that was a steep project. And not only mention one of the defining games of that generation, Half-Life 2, $40 million to develop that game. Now that's a huge budget for a game back then in the 2000s.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that was because they were building out the engine as well. Like,
right.
I wonder. Well, Gears of War at 10 million seems low to me because they had to. I guess they were using an Unreal engine. I wonder how much of that they put into the cost of making a game. Like, I wonder if Half-Life 2's engine development all the way through the game development was tied into the cost.
Correct. Yep. But again, they still had to pay for that.
Yeah, they still had to pay. They still had to pay for it.
Yeah. Right. Then let's jump to the 2010s, which is more recent decade here. We've seen the game budget seem to spiral out of control. Obviously games became more complex, more technically demanding. God of War 3, $44 million. Heavy Rain, $40 million. Watch Dogs, $68 million. I doubt Ubisoft actually made their money back off the first Watch Dogs. Grand Theft Auto 5, $137 million. We're talking about AAA movie budgets. We started talking about $137 million. Yeah. And video games are there as well, the same price. You can see here. Those costs to develop those games, you don't understand. That cost is huge on development studios and for publishers. They have to. So they're not in the market to just make a game and to give it to you for free. Right. They're in the market to make money. And they have to pass those costs off to the consumer some kind of way. Mm-hmm. Generally, it's been in the price of the game, which has historically been between $40 and $50. But another way is microtransactions, DLC, expansion packs. So it's justified for game developers to have these offsets, as part of their model.
Yeah. We we're getting to the point where it's extremely expensive to make a video game, a AAA video game. At that.
AAA, right.
Even smaller games are expensive to make as well. But 137 million Grand Theft Autos. Wow, that's astronomical right there.
Very astronomical. But yeah, obviously they made their money back.
Yeah,
the
so
game's
Rockstar's gonna make their money back. Yeah.
Right. They've sold tons of games, and with they're still continuing to support that game with the Grand Theft Auto Online. So yeah, but again, that's a lot of money for the games, and they have to pass that cost off to the consumer.
Yeah.
They're not going to eat those prices, too much.
Yeah, they had to pass it off in some way, and I think giving customers the option to pay for what they want I think it's a good way. It's when done right. Again, I want to reiterate that. And when it's done right, I think it's a good way to pass off the cost.
Yep. We talked about game prices. So we know game prices. Let's go back to the NES days. Game prices typically capped out at about $50. But actually, there was no cap on game prices back then.
Yeah.
I remember personally paying, my parents paying, $70 for an Indiana Jones video game back in the 1980s or whatever I want to say. 80s when the NES was around. So $70 back then was a lot of money if you want to compare it to today's prices. $70 back then was a lot of money for a video game.
When you include inflation, that
Right.
was a lot of money.
A lot of money. And so like I said, game prices stayed $50 for a long time. And then during the PS3, Xbox 360 era, that's when they jumped up to $60 per game. And people were a little bit upset about that, but I personally was not, because I understood what the development costs were.
Yeah.
And they had to, increase the price eventually because the budgets were getting out of control, as we pointed out, and they had to pay for that.
Yeah. I mean, you could look at the tech, like in PS3 and Xbox 360 games, and the games started looking more realistic. They started using capture methods to get actual humans in the game, using their emotions. Like, that stuff can't be cheap.
Right. Voice acting, real actors,
Yeah.
top-notch actors who have to, they have to get paid. Not only that, the size of, back in the Atari day, one person could make a AAA game back then, AAA game.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it takes hundreds of people.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it takes hundreds of people to make a video game. And you can get thinking, the average person's making $75 an hour probably. Costs are astronomical, as we pointed out. So the prices had to jump up to $60 in addition to DLC and microtransactions as well. Yeah. Okay. Do you see any cons with this? With what game developers have had to do with microtransactions, DLC, expansion packs?
Any cons?
Yeah.
I think anything we do is going to have its cons when it's something new. Like, this is a new idea to a lot of people, microtransactions, and it's getting a lot of attention because companies are starting to do it wrong. I think if maybe EA wouldn't have did it so wrong, it wouldn't have so much attention on it right now.
Right.
But I think the cons are just we're going to, gaming is going to fall on its face a little bit here while we figure out how to best, or some companies, I won't say gaming as a whole, but some companies are going to fall on their face while they figure out how to deploy these microtransactions in their games the right way. And I think that's what we're seeing. But I think we will get it. I think we will get it right for the most part. And the companies that don't, I don't think that they're gonna survive. To be quite frank, like we've seen companies, like there's not that many companies from the '80s, gaming companies around that did. Like, if they didn't get it right in the '80s, they're not around now.
Right.
So I think it behooves companies to get this right. Work with the customer to get this right on this.
Yeah, and I have faith. I mean, gaming has been around for almost 40 years now, and it has evolved. Yeah. They've continued to evolve. They've done the right thing. So I have faith that they're going to come up with the right model. I think they already have, for the most part. Like you said, specific companies who do it right are actually benefiting from this, and those who have not, they won't be around. Consumers will speak. If they don't like what you're doing, they'll make their voices loud and clear. So I have faith that gaming will get it right. So I believe in it. Yeah.